But you're not promising a massive spending binge. It's to be funded by more borrowing and huge tax rises on the very businesses and people that have helped to create over 2 million extra jobs. Don't you risk our economic recovery?
95% of the population will pay no more tax under Labour, no more national insurance and no higher VAT. What we have is a country where 6 million people earn less than the living wage. We have a country where there are unprecedented waiting times and waiting lists in our hospitals, 1 million people denied social care, and an increasing number of people sleeping on our streets. This has to be the time that we stop making the poorest in our society pay the price of austerity and start investing for the future. What we're proposing is an investment bank which will invest in all parts of this country, particularly those areas that have seen precious little investment since the end of the coal industry and in some places the end of the steel industry.
You say 95% of the country won't pay extra income tax, extra taxes, but the Institute of Fiscal Studies, which is a pretty independent arbitrator of these things at elections, says there is no way that tens of billions of pounds of tax rises would affect only a small group at the very top. No way. They say your plans, quote, would not work.
No, they haven't said in terms they will not work.
What they've said they would not work, Mr. Corbyn.
They have looked at our programme. They have been through the funding of it, and I'm pleased they have. And they've done the same, by the way, with the Conservatives. And what they're saying is you would have to collect your new taxes as well as the increase in corporation tax, obviously. You would have to be assiduous in chasing down tax evasion, obviously. What they've also said is that our investment would bring about a better society and a more harmonious society.
They said that you cannot
bring the prize worth.
They said that you're going for the highest ever peacetime level of taxation, the highest ever.
Well, they're not correct on that, actually, because the level of corporation tax we're proposing to go to would be 26%, which is actually less than it was in 2010.
No, they're talking about the overall level of taxation would be the highest ever in peacetime under a Corbyn government.
I dispute that figure, actually, but OK, we'll have that debate with the IFS. But I say to you, this election is about a choice. And the choice is this. Do we continue underfunding health, expect head teachers to collect from the parents to pay the teachers? Do we continue with the horrors of unfunded social care and the waiting list for social care? Do we continue with a housing crisis that affects the homeless right through to the more middle classes whose children can't find somewhere to live? Or do we invest for the future?
Indeed.
Our offer is we will invest for the future, invest in the future of our children.
And part of the investing in the future, you plan to borrow a lot to do that. How much will you borrow?
What we will do is for the public ownership elements, there'll be an exchange for bonds for shares in it.
But what's a bond?
A government bond.
It's a debt instrument. It's borrowing.
It's a bond is a government bond which would be serviced by the income from that service. But in addition, we would have control of it.
But you would still have to borrow. Bonds are borrowing. You would borrow.
Take the water industry, for example, which has been a method of siphoning off profits out of this country to offshore companies who've made a lot of money at the same time leaving us with expensive water and in some cases very bad levels of pollution.
I understand the case, but you would need to borrow to buy the utilities.
No, it's not. It's a swap of the shares for a government bond.
But if you're issuing bonds, Mr. Corbyn, you're issuing government debt. You are borrowing.
Issuing bonds that we own, which would be paid for by the profits from the industry.
But you said you would.
Instead of the profits,
you said you would cut the water utilities profits. That means you wouldn't have the money to pay for the bonds.
Instead of the profits being siphoned off, they would remain here. That's an advantage, surely.
National debt's already an incredible 1.7 trillion. If you borrow to invest, on top of the 50 we do, another 25 you say, you need to borrow to nationalise. You may have to borrow if the IFS is right for day-to-day spending.
No, we're absolutely clear we will not borrow for day-to-day spending.
But you might have to if the IFS is right. Our national debt, which has already soared under the current government, would soar even more under Labour, wouldn't it?
No, because we have the rule that we would only borrow to invest for the future. We would not borrow for revenue expenditure. I mean, that's sort of a sensible rule, which has not always been followed. And what we'd get in return is investment in better services. That, in turn, would encourage economic growth.
You didn't rank